heard this, it's already too late. The city had been a relentless hum, a constant vibration against my skull. My husband, Tom, and I yearned for silence, for the gentle rustle of leaves instead of the screech of sirens. Our daughter, Lily, with her 7 years and endless energy, needed wide-open spaces, not cramped city parks. So we bought Oakhaven Farm. The name itself whispered promises of peace. The farmhouse was old, charmingly dilapidated, with peeling paint the color of faded cream and a porch that sagged invitingly. The land stretched behind it, rolling hills blanketed in tall grass and dotted with ancient oaks. It was perfect, or so we thought. The first few weeks were idyllic. We unpacked, painted Lily's room a bright yellow, explored the overgrown orchard, and breathed air that tasted clean and sharp. The silence was a balm, broken only by birdsong and the occasional lowing of distant cows. Even Lily, usually glued to screens, spent hours outside, her face flushed with sun and dirt, chasing butterflies and building forts in the woodshed. I felt a sense of calm I hadn't experienced in years. But then the scent started. It was faint at first, a sweet, almost sickly floral perfume, drifting in on the evening breeze. I thought it was honeysuckle, though none grew near the house. Tom, ever the pragmatist, dismissed it as my overactive city dweller's nose adapting to rural scents. But the smell persisted, growing stronger each day, morphing from floral sweetness into something cloying, something rotten. It became most potent in the evenings, drawing in from the backfield, the one we'd decided to turn into a vegetable garden. Tom started investigating, walking the perimeter of the field, sniffing the air like a hound. I worried about him out there in the dark, the silence suddenly feeling less like peace and more like waiting. He found nothing obvious, no decaying animals, no stagnant water, just earth, rich and dark. One afternoon, Lily and I were digging in the field, preparing the soil. She shrieked, dropping her small trowel with a clatter. "Mommy, look." She was pointing at something half-buried in the freshly turned earth. It was bone. Pale white, smooth, undeniably bone. Tom, initially skeptical, grew pale when he saw it. We dug carefully, our initial excitement turning to queasy dread as more bones emerged. Skulls, femurs, ribs, human bones. A lot of them. My heart hammered against my ribs. We contacted the local sheriff, a man with a kindly face and weary eyes. He arrived with a deputy, surveyed the grim discovery, and his weary eyes grew even wearier. "Lord have mercy," he muttered, pulling out his phone. The investigation was swift and grim. Archaeologists were brought in, forensic experts. The field was cordoned off. The news reports were hushed and somber, talking of an historical find, carefully avoiding the word mass grave. The whispers started in the village, hushed conversations in the general store, guarded glances in our direction at the church social. Old Mrs. Henderson, her eyes like faded sapphires, finally approached us, her voice a dry rustle. "The calling sickness," she said, her gaze fixed on the ground. "They say it took whole villages, buried them all quickly, before it spread further than it already had." "What was the calling sickness?" I asked, my voice barely a breath. Mrs. Henderson just shook her head, her lips pressed into a thin, bloodless line. "Forgotten now. Best to keep it that way. But we couldn't. We researched, digging through local historical societies, dusty archives, and forgotten websites. We found fragmented accounts, whispered rumors, medical journals from the early 20th century detailing a devastating epidemic called the somnolent plague. It wasn't particularly deadly, the journal said, but it left its victims in a perpetual, deep slumber. Communities, desperate to contain the spread, quarantined the afflicted, often burying them alive in mass graves to prevent further contagion. But the journals hinted at something more, something obscured by medical jargon and scientific detachment. They spoke of neurological anomalies, cellular regeneration, unforeseen biological adaptations. They mentioned changes, subtle at first, then profound. And then we understood. The sickly sweet smell, the floral perfume, it wasn't honeysuckle. It was decay, masked, transmuted. It was the scent of something not entirely dead, but not truly alive either. The first sign in Lily was a fever, low grade, persistent. Then came the lethargy. She slept more and more, her usual vibrancy fading like a dying ember. She complained of headaches, of strange dreams, of the feeling of things moving under her skin. My baby. What was happening to my baby? I started coughing, a dry, hacking cough that racked my body. Tom felt it too, a prickling sensation under his skin, a subtle change in his senses. The sweet, rotten smell was no longer just in the air. It was inside me, emanating from my pores. We were exposed. We disturbed the earth, breathed in the spores, whatever vile contagion lay dormant beneath Oakhaven Farm. And it wasn't a killer. It was a transformer. Last night, Lily woke up screaming. "Mommy, Daddy," my eyes. "They're changing." We rushed to her bedside, heart hammering in my chest. In the dim light of the hallway, her eyes, once bright blue, shimmered with an unnatural, iridescent sheen. And they weren't quite round anymore. They were elongating, becoming almost feline. My blood ran cold. Tom's coughs have deepened, rattling in his chest. His skin feels strangely cold to the touch, yet radiates a faint heat. And I can hear things I shouldn't be able to hear. The scuttling of insects beneath the floorboards, the rustling of leaves on trees miles away. And the smell, the sweet, cloying, rotten smell is intoxicating, almost comforting. I feel drawn to it, almost like a moth to a flame. We are trapped here in Oakhaven Farm, surrounded by silent witnesses beneath the soil, the transformed victims of a forgotten plague. The quiet life we sought has become a horrifying symphony of slow, insidious change. The transformation has begun. And I fear, terribly, that the silence we craved was not peace, but the long, drawn-out breath of something ancient and awakening. Something just beneath the surface, reaching, calling, and changing us into something else.